Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is California at 11 o'clock, just after 11. I apologize, I was running behind. I had to delete that very first one. And today's topic is because it's April Fool's Day, I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to go into more detail about some of the things I talk about in my books, the Catch No One Wants, the Catch series. It's a three-book series. Book one is Christian contemporary fiction, African American fiction. Book two, which is the white one behind me, is the workbook or study guide because it goes into questions and answers and then provides additional tools and scriptures based on the things that I talk about in the contemporary fiction book. Book three, the purple book that's behind me, The Wrong Catch, it's releasing April 22nd. Woohoo! I cannot wait. I'm going to drop a couple of things in the notes just so that you will have it. So let me see if this is going to work right now. So hang in there. If it doesn't, I'll drop it in the notes afterwards because there's plenty of time to do that. Hey, Jacqueline, thank you for coming on board. So I thought I would just spend a little time on April Fool's Day just dissecting what exactly does that mean. I know that in the world, the celebration of this day means different things. But there's something interesting about the fool because, hey, Miss Queenie, God decided to incorporate over 50 scriptures that talks about a fool. And I thought, there has to be a reason that he did that. She said, my favorite study guides, whether you're married or not. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. So I just thought on April Fool's Day, it would be a great day for me to talk about going into more details with the fool. So I just want to cover a couple of things. So I got 5 points I'm going to cover. The first point I'm going to cover is that the fool says there is no God. So I want you to understand what God's word says in terms of how we can determine if a person we're engaged with or talking with is a fool. It's God's definition. I'm not here trying to call people out, call out who you're seeing, or any of that. I'm just here to present what God says is the definition of a fool. First definition he gives us, point number one, I'm going to cover in a second, is a fool says there is no God. Point number two, a fool thinks his own way is right. He rejects wisdom and gets angry when things go wrong. Now, even though the scripture sometimes refer to the person as a him or he, we know that the definition of a fool applies to both the male and the female, because even Proverbs 14:1 says that a wise woman builds the house, but a foolish woman, the fool, tears it down. So when we're talking about a fool today, because I'm writing a book that's directed towards women, I'm talking about the man or the men in the stories and the wrong catch, basically the wrong people to date, the wrong people to marry. So I'm talking about the men, but the scriptures apply to both the male and the female. So the third one is a fool's mouth gets him or her into trouble. So we're going to go over that in just a moment. The fourth point that I'm going to talk about, a fool makes irrational decisions that can bring harm to the entire family. So now we're going to get deep in that too, because if you're trying to mate with a fool or marry a fool, he's going to tear it down, just like that Proverbs scripture that I mentioned about a woman who builds versus a woman who tears down the house. So we're going into detail more about that. The number 5 is a fool does not know love. Oh my goodness. Why do we think that? So here's the reason that many of these things are covered in the books. It's because I've seen women over time making the same mistakes over and over and not scrutinizing the person that they're interested in, because we use these superficial ways of becoming attractive to really nothing. Because if you were to equate a person to a piggy bank and you didn't take the time to shake the bank or even find out how full the bank is or how many pennies are in there, you didn't take the time to see how many pennies versus dimes, quarters, and 50-cent pieces, you just saw the piggy bank and you knew it was a bank. And so that's what you want. And that's kind of how women are choosing mates these days. They're using superficial methods to do it. And let me tell you, this world of marriage is not superficial at all. It's real. It's a real deal. you're talking about two lives that have to act and become one. It's more effort and work than you realize, but it's a loving effort and work that you put into the person that you care about and the person that cares about you. So let me just make that clear. The whole premise of the story is so that the woman can discover the husband she deserves. Period. Never said he was perfect, never said you were perfect, but discover the husband you deserve. And the best way you can do that is to use wisdom in scrutinizing who this person is. And he definitely should not be a fool. Just as for a man, his wife definitely should not be a fool either. So let's go back to point number one. I will post these graphics in the comments section after this is done. I'm not that skilled to post all of this early, so let me just let you know. So a fool says there is no God. God makes it very clear in Psalms 14:1 and Psalms 53:1. Same statement. A fool has said there is no God. So now, God makes it very clear. Those that come to him must believe that he is. Don't waste your time coming to God if you don't even believe that he is who he says he is. You don't believe he can do what you're asking him to do. You don't believe that he's God, that he is the creator of all things. You don't believe that he is the Abba Father, the one who is the source of everything. Everything living has to account for themselves, and the person they have to account to is God. So I'm just letting you know, this is not about a democracy. The rules and the laws of the land does not apply to what God's word says. God operates a theocracy, which means that God is the one that's in charge and he's the one calling the shots. And so therefore, in his word, he's given us over 50 scriptures to help us, not to hurt us, so that you can apply the wisdom in it. That the first one is, a fool has said there is no God. Now, if that's the very first question you're able to get an answer to, then you need to stop right there in your tracks, dig your feet in the sand, dig your shoes in the sand, get out of the sandbox, because this person has already told you what your life is about to look like if you don't get out. God is not encouraging us to date or marry a fool. He's telling us very clearly what a fool is like. So the first thing that fool will say, whether it's a she or he, is there is no God. Number two, a fool thinks his own way is right. Have you ever tried to argue with an unreasonable person? That's what a fool is, an unreasonable person. You cannot argue with them. You cannot debate with them. You can't even have a simple conversation with them, because a fool has already made it up in his mind or her mind that their way is right, despite the fact that it contradicts whatever God says, despite that it contradicts whatever their obligation to you is. Because look, if they've already said there is no God, there's no way they can understand what their role is according to God's word. There's no way they can understand how they're supposed to love you according to God's word, care for you, cover you, keep you, or even fulfill the assignments that Jesus has, because a husband should love a wife as the church. And he was a king, a prophet, and a priest. So if he doesn't know God, he can't do any of those three things. And so that's why it's important. Hey, Miss Anne Marie, thank you for joining. Hey, Miss Shar. Hey, good to see you, my dear. I'm just letting you know it's important for you to understand what a fool looks like, how it operates, or he or she operates. And also, let me make it clear to make sure you're not one either. So that's what's important. We're talking about the men in the stories, but women can be foolish too, according to the scripture. So the second thing is, a fool thinks his own way is right. You cannot convince that fool otherwise. They believe, even if it's against the law, he believes it's right, and he's going to go ahead and do it despite what you say. So don't think, like some women think, that this process is called build a bear or build a man. It's not. Don't think that you're going into a relationship expected to change his mind. A fool is a fool is a fool. And what's that saying about the stripes? Whatever stripes he has, that's what stripes he has, or she. And so make it clear that he thinks his own way is right. He also rejects wisdom. So here's somebody with limited understanding. No wisdom? I need somebody, and if you don't have it, I need somebody who's going to pray and ask God to give them some. We don't know everything. We don't know the answers. Sometimes we're at the crossroad and we need help. We got to ask God to tell us which way to go. And you're going to cut off your avenue to wisdom, the God who is God all by himself, the one and only true and living God, the God, everything, every living thing, every creation must obey his voice. That God, we all need wisdom. And so a fool has said he rejects it all because he already thinks he knows everything. So there is what I said earlier, unreasonable people. And everybody has had unreasonable friends, unreasonable relatives. These are the people you just don't get into challenges with or conversations or debate with because it's just a waste of time. You'll leave with a headache or a migraine because they're going to believe what they believe even though their information is limited and they're not embracing any new information. And so therefore they reject wisdom because in their mind, what they believe and what they think is right. A fool then gets angry when things go wrong. So here you have a hothead, someone who is very emotional, and the pendulum, whatever way the knob turns or spins, that's the direction they move towards. So they're very volatile people. And I'm going to tell you about a particular fool in a minute. And the scriptures, I'm sorry I didn't give you the scriptures in the other one. Number one was Psalms 14:1, Psalms 53:1. This one, the fool thinks his own way is right, rejects wisdom, and gets angry when things go wrong. That's Proverbs 12:15. And I'm going to drop these graphics in the comments when I'm done, and they have the scriptures on it. Proverbs 1:7, Proverbs 10:21, and Proverbs 27:3. That's why Proverbs is called the book of wisdom, because if you want to know more and gain wisdom besides just asking God for help, read the book of Proverbs. So that covers all those points I was making. There's so many more that I can't say, didn't cover here. A fool starts fights. I have that. A fool is easily upset. A fool believes everything he reads. This is my deer in the headlights. I'm sorry. Believes everything he reads without any justification or support to validate it. And so a fool loves to talk, but hates to listen. And there's a reason why we have two ears and only one mouth. And the word listen and silent uses the same letters. Those two words, listen and silent, uses the same two letters, which means we are to be we should listen twice as hard as speaking. Sometimes you learn so much more when you just close your mouth and listen to what people are saying. Listen to their tone. Listen to the words, the sentences, and the sentence structure. What sentence they say first and what sentence they say last. If you pay attention, the Spirit will give you discernment about the person because you'll learn so much by keeping quiet and listening to what they have to say. So, hey, Miss Myra, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. So let me go on. That was number 2. Number 3. Number 3 is a fool's mouth gets him into trouble. Now, this is the person, think about it. All of these characteristics I've spoken about so far, this is a person you're talking about spending the rest of your life with? Can you imagine how volatile and what type of hamster wheel you're going to sign up for? Because it's just going to be spinning in the same direction and not going anywhere with this type of person. Hey, Miss Verlina, thank you for joining us. And so that's why point number 3. A fool's mouth gets him into trouble. That's Proverbs 10:14 and Proverbs 20:3. Look, every time this person has no discernment. Look, when we're seeking God for wisdom and direction, we need him to guide us. We need him to give us clues about what we're doing. That's whether it's in business or in life, especially in terms of who God would want you to join in marriage to. You need discernment. You need wisdom. You need to ask God. You need to keep God in the process. And so here you have a person who, one, I talked about the fact, has already said there is no God. So he had already cut off any kind of avenue or support and help that he needs. To keep God in the process, you both must have God in your life. So if he's not believing, there we go. So he lacks discernment. He uses his mouth. His mouth gets him into trouble, which means he's always running his mouth, He's running his mouth, but yet he doesn't really understand half the things he's running his mouth about. Because remember, he has a lack of understanding. He hates instruction and wisdom. And so therefore, he's cut off all avenues to learn more. So he's stuck on stupid, basically, because he has a lack of understanding. And so when things go wrong, rather than trying to fix it or use wisdom or seek help or seek guidance, he gets angry. And therein lies a problem. That every time something goes wrong, he reverts to anger. Not a good thing. My point number 4, a fool makes irrational decisions that can bring harm to the entire house. Do you hear me? A fool can make decisions that can bring harm, can kill you, your children, and everybody following you because of what he does. Irrational, a fool. And it reminded me of the story of Nabal. Nabal's very name means fool. And I know there was a reason why God stuck that story in Scripture, but I find it very fascinating. First of all, how it specifically talks about the wife he had was beautiful and intelligent. And of course, the first question you're going to ask yourself is, how in the world did she end up with this guy? He was wealthy. Therein lies one problem, because let me tell you, money isn't everything. My husband didn't make as much as me when we first got married. And if I had focused on that as a condition, I would have missed out on what we were able to build together, because he made more than me within 5 years after we got married, and made more than me for the rest of my career. I made good money as a deputy administrator, but my husband made more. So I'm just saying, it's important that you recognize, something said picture in picture, that you recognize that in the book we talk about conditions. That's a condition. So maybe that was it, but also in biblical times, they had arranged marriages. It may have been arranged for her to be with a wealthy man, but her life had to have been miserable, because it describes this man not only as a fool, but he was churlish. He was mean. He was mean-spirited. He was angry all the time. Everything we just talked about already in terms of the characteristics of a fool. And so Nabal is one of those. And I want to make sure that you look up that scripture concerning Nabal and his life. Because what saved Nabal and the entire house was the wife. When David was helping out in the field, hanging out with his men, because he was on the run too, and he was protecting Nabal's staff and his workers, all of that. And then Nabal got ready to throw a celebration, and David sent a word to him asking just for some food. Do you know that crazy man told David he wasn't giving him anything? Even after David, as a courtesy, protected his land and his staff. So David sent word to tell him that to send word to his men that he was getting ready to destroy the whole family. So that's why a fool can, and his irrational decision making, can bring down the entire house. That's what I mean. Kill the whole family. That was David's goal. And so that's what a fool can do. He makes so many crazy and irrational decisions. He doesn't realize how he exposes his own family. The family that God calls you to protect as a man, to cover and keep. And you expose your family to danger, harm. That's what a fool did. That's what Nabal did in his story. And the moral of the story is the wife found out that David was about to kill everybody. And she quickly had them gather up food to take out to David, fell on her face and pleaded for the family to be spared. And David responded to her kindness and decided not to kill the whole family. So while Nabal was at home having a party and getting drunk, later on, the next day when he realized what had happened and what could have happened based on his irrational decision, he suffered a heart attack and died a few days later. It was Abigail, his wife, that saved the day. And as a result of that, she ended up marrying David. So I'm telling you, his name means fool. And one of my favorite stories about what a fool can do and the kind of harm he can bring upon his household, doesn't matter how much money he has. If he's a fool, he's still a fool. Who wants a fool? Who cares? You rub your 2 pennies together and be thankful you're not living with a fool, because that's a crazy household. Here's number 5, and then I'm going to close. If you have any questions, please post your questions. Point number 5 is a fool does not know love. So here you have a guy who says there is no God. Scripture tells us that God is love, and they that loves him, those that know him, loves him and loves others. They know of God. Those that love knoweth God. And so we don't know love apart from God. Even now, we still struggle with the whole idea of love until we take the time to really uncover and dissect what God means by us loving each other. All you have to do is look at how he loved you. As Christ loved the church is how a man should love his wife. And I reminded my husband one day about that. I said, how many times does Jesus tell you when you pray? Didn't you ask me about that yesterday? Are you back again asking me again? I said, so why do husbands talk about a honey-do list? Jesus never said, another honey-do list, you want me to do some more? I said, so if men are loving their wives like Christ loved the church, you better throw that honey-do list out, because Jesus never asked for that either. And so that's a funny for you guys. So post your laughter. Anyway, the bottom line is Jesus never asked for anything. God just offered his son and offered his love to us in a way that he knew those who would not receive, and he knew those who would. He knew those who would accept the gift that he gives us, the gift of life, and he knew those who wouldn't. So my message is never to the ones who are not interested in this message. My message that I have to carry is to the ones who want to know more, who want to learn wisdom. So I'm not here to talk to a fool. I'm here to talk to women who are and men, if they're on, interested in learning how not to be one of these things, because scripture is very clear. I was really excited about all the scriptures I was learning and discovering. I'm going, wow. God was serious about making it plain, making it clear for us to know and all you have to do, and I encourage all of you, just Google, put in Bible in your Google, and then say scriptures about a fool, and watch them pop up. You will be surprised. But this is what God has given us as tools that we can use to make sure that we're applying this wisdom that he has given us. Sometimes our wisdom comes from him directly through our prayer, but sometimes we have to find out that there's wisdom already in scripture. All you have to do is read it and discover it. And so those are my 5 points. I'm going to post these graphics so that you can have them, all 5 that I talked about today. If you have any questions, just keep in mind, I thought I was writing one novel, but the idea of using fish to describe the wrong men to date has just taken off. And I'm blessed by it. I know this is what God has called me to do. So there's more coming. And I want you to know that I appreciate all your support, all the people who have given me feedback that said the use of fish, my editor said the use of fish is genius. And it's really speaking to a lot of people. I had one person give a book, the very first book, to a person who was stuck in a hostile, toxic relationship. None of the friends could convince her to get out of it. But when she read the story of the pufferfish, she recognized herself in that story and made the decision to get out. So if the books can do that as a Christian contemporary fiction, if anybody can see, because I tried to write as Jesus wrote in the parables. A parable is just a fictional story where Jesus just wrote the story in a way that got the interest of the person he was talking to, our persons. He told the story utilizing tools that was familiar with people, but also told the story in a way that the person themselves can discover themselves in the story. He didn't hit them over the head with the scripture. He didn't try to convince them of anything, just told the story. He also included in his stories a way out. So you could present the problem. He presented the problem, but he also included a way out in the story. And at the end, he left it up to the individual to decide what they want to do with the information he just shared with them. He didn't say, okay, you need to make a decision tonight. He didn't do any of that. He just left it there. And that's just like the way it is for us today. I tried to take that approach in my writing to present stories. And I'm just amazed at the number of women who have come back and says, I met those fish. I know those fish. And just in awe with the 82-year-old woman who took the book to the senior center, and the women around were discussing the fish that they knew, or the different characters that they knew. So I want you to know I appreciate your support, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful for this next book coming out on April 22nd. unless you have any questions, that's the end of my little presentation today on tips on how not to date a fool. More information and tips are in my books, so please make sure you get your book. It's still, the third book is still on pre-order. I want to thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Miss Queenie. Thank you, Shar. Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you, Myra. Thank you, Verlina. Thank you all for joining in today. Like I said, I'll post these graphics in the comments. That's all I have. I don't know if I'm going to bring Dr. Velma Talks back. I used to talk 15 minutes every Tuesday on dating, marriage. Sometimes it was marriage, sometimes it was dating. Sometimes it was an element that you need to understand in marriage. Sometimes it was an element in dating. We'll see if I bring that back, but I felt that on April Fool's Day, what a perfect day to talk about how not to date a fool. Thank you all. Hope you enjoyed today. Unless I have any other comments, I don't see any questions. Okay, guys, bye. Enjoy.